Welcome to episode 6 of Neato Podcast. Hey, you know what? We never decided. Should we say Neato the podcast or Neato Podcast? Like, what have you guys been saying?
I think it's the podcast, but
Neato the podcast.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is.
Or should I just say welcome to Neato?
you know what? You do you, and make sure you point.
We've been saying welcome to Neato.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Neato. And today we are going to talk about the incredible Netflix original series Stranger Things that has shaken the world. And we're just going to talk about season 3 in specifics. What we thought about it, what we liked about it, what we didn't like. You know, at the very end, I would say we'll do a little ranking of how we rank each of the 3 seasons, kind of in our own right.
I like it.
And then so without further ado,
I think.
how do you guys want to do this?
Yeah, how do we start?
I would like to just interject just for a second, just a small little anecdote.
Yes.
That might derail us just for a couple minutes, but
I
think it goes along with two
A
of our
commercial break, if you will.
Yeah, it's a commercial break sponsored by Facebook. It kind of hits our meme episode, our first episode, and then I think our 4th episode on aliens. But have you seen this? Have you heard this?
Have you heard this?
We are going to raid Area 51.
Oh no.
And they can't stop all of us. So I got invited to this, and now when I got invited, there was like 300,000 people. Now there's a million people that are like,
oh, they're showing Oh Brother, Where Art Thou the Philbrook. We should go.
Oh, I love that movie.
Anyway,
ask our wives.
I noticed it says you're going.
Oh yes, I'm going.
Do you have do you already have travel arrangements and all that jazz?
Yes, I have. I am all ready to go. But this is hilarious because if you are on any social media platform, and I guarantee you've seen like memes or things about like when we storm Area 51 or Area 51 in some sort of like capacity. And it's because this guy literally just out of like boredom, and he said, I did it for thumbsy ups and likes. He's like, I just made this just to be funny. And it's like garnered enough, I think, traction to where like FBI, like Air Force, like they're like making public statements saying, basically, if you do this, like we'll kill you. Like if you actually try and like raid Area 51, like we will shoot you.
So the thing we were talking about when we mentioned like about getting shot on sight, that's
I guess it's true.
Yeah, I mean that's never been a secret. They post signs. They're not secretive about it either. They post signs that say like violators will be shot or trespassers will be shot or something.
This is probably, I was dying when I heard this. So this is the game plan.
It's and Tackett, just so you understand, this whole description of what's going on is like a string of memes.
Right.
So if something doesn't make sense, just think, okay, it's just a meme.
And then laugh like you know what you're talking about. So the basic idea is that Kyles form the front line. So we got in black our Kyles here. We feed them enough. How did you say this, Adam? Psychobin?
I don't know exactly. It looks like psilocybin.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds right.
And Monster Energy, and say that anyone in camouflage is their stepdad, and the entire base is made of drywall that will go berserk and become an impenetrable wall. The rock throwers will throw pebbles at the inevitable resistance. We don't want to hurt them. We just want to annoy them enough to stop shooting all the Kyles. While this is happening, the 2 Naruto runner battalions will run full speed around the north and south flank and clone jutsu, effectively tripling our numbers and overwhelm the base. And then he follows up with the P.S. Hello, U.S. government. This is a joke. I do not actually intend to go ahead with this plan. But at this point, because there are literally 1 million people that are attending this thing, or like, you know, say they're going, like, I would not be surprised.
People are going to show up.
People are going to show up.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really excited.
Go back up. So there's a date and a time.
Yeah,
and everything?
September 20th.
So what?
Wow.
It's kind of weird how uncanny it is because you walked into my office and said, hey, have you seen this?
Have you seen this? Have you heard this?
And I hadn't seen anything related to it at that point. But then literally all day after that, like clockwork, my entire social media and Reddit feeds were all just this.
Yeah.
And so I was really intrigued by it. And so I was just kind of loosely wondering like, oh, I wonder where this started. Like whether it was this guy's post or if this guy was inspired by something. And I think I've traced it back to a conversation.
Can we get Nickelback? What is that?
Oh yeah.
Wait, one more down. One more down. Oh,
Nickelback
that's
one?
amazing.
It's all comments like that. But I think it originated from the Joe Rogan podcast because he just had that guy on. The guy who supposedly worked at Area 51.
Oh,
Okay.
I got to listen to that episode.
And he has a Netflix documentary about him. It's not, they don't even talk about it. They just say, like, what if everyone just showed up at Area 51? And then they just moved on. And then immediately after that, like, all
Got
of this
it.
came up. So I think
He probably watched
didn't
it.
he didn't formulate the plan, but somebody, you know, I think that was like a loose inspiration for it. I forget the guy's name, but
Yeah, there's like packing an army uniform so I can switch sides when things get froggy. Yeah, this is going to be great. I'm excited. So September 20th, put it on your calendars.
I wonder if it's one of those things where the author intentionally made it so that it was so much later on that people forgot about it and no one really got killed.
Right.
Because that,
What? So
If
the
you're
real
gonna-
question
if you're
is
gonna
like,
do
what
it-
if even like a few people try to do it
well, they're
and
going
get killed, and like, how's that guy gonna feel?
Well, and I was reading an article about it, and they were saying that I guess they were like, yeah, we're not really concerned about it because the desert would kill anybody before they would actually get to Area
go back
51.
to that picture where it shows their ranks and things. This is one of my first observations was like, when you look at that photo, you see Area 51 circled in red, and where everyone else's starting point is miles and miles away. It's not like the front yard of Area 51. It's
Right.
an incredible, like they're in the mountains. You see this? This is not like a front yard.
I know some people that know how to
run
climb
through.
mountains. They could figure that out.
Yeah, but imagine, so these guys in the green, they're running, but in that Naruto run, which is when you run. Google
Like a
image,
weeb.
Google image that so he knows.
I think it looks 100% realistic, but
It does, but if it is realistic, you're also going to have people coming from behind, the back.
yeah, that's my question.
door.
Is why is that the only?
So people running like this.
Yeah,
You see this? You seeing this?
You seen this?
Imagine running like that, but through the mountains and for
Naruto
15
Run,
miles.
London. That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
So there you go. I just thought that was really interesting, and I'm really excited to see if people
How it
actually
plays
go.
out.
It relates to 3 of our topics, obviously.
Stranger
the
Things?
memes, Stranger Things, and
how does it relate
aliens.
to Stranger Things?
Because there's aliens.
And well, see, this is the perfect topic because it crosses all of our
That's a good.
episode. Our first episode was memes, check. The second episode was our second episode?
Our fourth episode was aliens.
Oh, second episode was Avengers. Maybe they'll find some kind of
the
serum or
Infinity
something.
Gauntlet.
Third episode was cringe. If
battle.
everyone gets shot, it's going to be really cringy. Episode 4 was aliens. So that's now episode 5.
It has come full
So-
circle.
Really, we've been planning this
It was meant
from
to
the
happen.
beginning.
Yeah.
It was all about that post.
Yeah. And
We're
on
done.
September 21st, we will record our update
We're actually
podcast.
going to be streaming live from Area 51 on September
We'll send a
20th.
drone and we'll just watch from above.
just the
No, we're going to be on
massacre.
site doing our podcast on site in the desert.
It'll
just
be
a
like
table.
that scene from
It's
Game
this
of Thrones
table.
when it's at nighttime and you see them charging with the swords on fire and then the wall of nothing, you just see like their swords like get extinguished.
Yeah,
one
you're
by
like, all the Kyles are gone.
one. And then all of like the rock throwers are like, oh my gosh.
The Naruto runners would just turn around and just run the
They
other way.
Naruto run away.
Okay, so what are we talking about? Stranger Things?
Stranger Things, yeah.
So yeah,
season
now
3.
let's transition into the Stranger Things. So I guess while Brandon's pulling that up, Adam, what was your initial thought? Like, let's just start at the first episode. When you kind of got into that first episode, how were you feeling, like from the beginning, and maybe when that first episode finished?
Well, the first thing I guess I should say is obviously this episode is going to be full of spoilers.
Oh
So
yeah, good point.
if for some reason you haven't already seen season 3, which by this point, if you're the kind of person who would be offended by spoilers of season 3, but you still haven't seen it yet. It's been out for 3 weeks, so it's kind of the statute of limitations is pretty much gone for that. But anyway, if for some reason, just know that there's going to be a lot of spoilers here. But so my overall opinion of season 3, is that what you're saying?
I was saying like episode 1.
Oh, gotcha.
How did you feel kind of right off the bat when you started getting into episode 1?
So, I was really looking forward to the season, and overall, I think the season was good. I'm trying to think back to exactly what episode 1. Dustin is at camp, so he's gone for the first half of it. I guess episode 1. The thing that is always weird, and I think I've heard a lot of other people say this, is the whole relationship between the kids, between 11 and the boy.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. No, Will's the other one.
Mike. They all both look the same with those awful bull cuts. Jeez.
Mike is really tall in this season.
You
He's
can tell they're all at a
tall and
very
gangly.
awkward
Yeah, they're
stage of
weird.
life.
They look weird, but I don't know. I think the relationship between them makes sense, but it's also kind of cringy to watch at times. It's I don't want them to be like. I'm like Hopper almost, you know,
You're
just
the
stay away
protected
from
dad.
each other.
Right.
3
I don't want to see
inches.
that.
Leave room for Jesus.
Yeah. So there was that whole aspect that I guess you could put this down for episode 1, but I noticed really throughout the whole season, it was almost as if their realistic design aesthetic, I guess, from season 1 was really exaggerated. Have you seen those memes of, it's like a side by side, it's like how people dressed in the 80s, and it's like a picture of the Breakfast Club, and they're just wearing normal clothes, basically just jeans and t-shirts and jackets, and then it's how we think they dressed, and it's a bunch of
super colorful
sorority girls in pink jazzercise uniforms.
Right.
I feel like that's where they went in this season. Where I watched episode 1 of season 1 over the weekend, and it's all really muted colors and realistic stuff, flannels and things we wear today. That's not the stereotypical 80s stuff.
Right.
And then in all of season 3, it's the mall with everyone's wearing bright poppy neons and weird things. So I almost got that feeling of I think they're leaning in a little too hard to the stereotypes of the 80s instead of
I think they got that budget that they were wanting.
I know. So
Yeah.
realistic, it kind of hurt the realism for me. I was it was always a distraction of how everyone was just some kind of almost like a parody of the 80s this season. Obviously I wasn't around in the 80s, but I did appreciate season 1 for not going overboard, and then I think season 2 and then now season 3 is kind of went overboard with how everything looked.
Well, for me, when I first started watching episode 1, I kind of immediately noticed the structure they were going with, which was instead of all the kids being together, they're gonna have them in these they kind of formed these brand new groups for this, which pretty much stuck for almost the entire season.
Yeah, they weren't the whole crew was never together until maybe the end of episode 6, beginning.
And then they split them up again.
Yeah.
Even at the end. So I think they really stuck with it, which I actually liked because to me it was okay. If they had stayed the same group, I think they would have gotten into a rut on
it would have been so boring.
What the dialogue is going to be,
Yeah.
what their interactions are going to be. But they brought these new dynamics, for example, the what's Steve the Hare,
Steve and
whatever,
Robin.
Robin and
Dustin.
and then the little girl.
Yeah.
That was a brand new dynamic. Which
I thought
was, it made it new and interesting.
That was probably my favorite.
Steve and
group.
Dustin
The Scoop's
were
troop.
really good together in the last season. They only had a few scenes together, and I think they capitalized on that. And then the new girl that they added was also, I think, really good. Both the little girl and then the girl who worked at the ice cream place. I think they were both really good, and that was one of the strongest. I mean, that was almost a stronger storyline than the actual 11 and the other kids. But
Do you guys want to go instead of going through episode by episode, do you guys want to just talk about some of the major plot points and what you thought about it?
I'm not going to be able to because
Yeah.
we binge watched it. We finished 6 episodes on the 4th of July, and then we finished
Yeah.
the next morning.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's been almost 2 weeks since I've
So-
seen.
Okay.
I'm not going to be able to.
I'll
decipher
just start
episodes.
out question that I, even after finishing it, didn't really fully understand. And I think I maybe do, but if it's what I think it is, I wasn't that impressed. But what's the point of the Russian storyline in regards to what is their goal, the Russians?
So I think it's just the same, like the
Weapon.
space race Cold War thing. They're just trying to compete. But I mean,
Because was it Russians the first season?
well, that's another thing. Rewatching episode 1 of season 1 after watching season 3 in its entirety. So the evil scientists are the Americans in season 1. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but the American scientists are way more believable as like bad guys than they made the Russians this season. Go back and watch episode 1. And they almost made the Russians look like silly slapstick bad guys.
Yeah.
And parodies of bad guys. Like you never really felt danger for
No.
the kids. And then in season 1, it's the Americans, and you're just like the whole tone was darker.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what are these people? And you have the whole mystery of you don't know what they're hiding or what they're trying to contain or anything like that. But
And you have them like 11, like they're in. It's not like they're just trying to open a portal without like affecting anybody. Like they're like using 11 like as like a test subject. So it's I don't know. There's those short films that we watched the past weekend. If there was ever like a bad guy, it was always Russian. Like he always had a Russian accent.
Yeah.
it's
And
a
it's-
huge, it's a big stereotype.
But my question is, what were they trying to accomplish? Like, I never got that.
What were the Russians trying
I
to
think
Yeah,
it was
season
like
3.
I mean maybe like a space race. I think it's to maybe weaponize. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would go. Like if it's in that era, I would think that they're just trying to get the portal open so they can find these creatures and use them as.
So they somehow
mean,
know about the creatures,
I think-
and they're trying to get them back. Is that the goal, basically?
I think so. They basically the U.S. isn't the only, which was true in other things back then, but the U.S. was kind of in every aspect back then was battling the Soviet Union. So I think more so, I think they had basically every opportunity and every knowledge about the Upside Down that we did. It's just they were doing it on their own.
Right.
So I think they were just, we don't know exactly what their motives were. And maybe that's a problem with the show, is with as season 1, you rewatch it and you realize, oh, they knew about the Upside Down, so they were trying to train and create these people to not battle, but like defend or weaponize humans or children against the Demogorgon or against the whatever, to give them powers to kind of control the Upside Down.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Americans in season 1 had a motive that you knew what they were doing. With the Russians, I feel like they didn't really give them a motive.
So
or
you feel
they
like
didn't
it's
do.
unclear?
I don't think they gave a good description. I think they kind of leaned more into the stereotype of 80s movies that Russians were always the bad guys. And they even mentioned, they kind of call it out halfway, like Dustin or somebody says, like, I don't know, just bad guys are always Russian or something when they're in the mall. So I think they just leaned more on, oh, you'll just accept Russians as the bad guys because it's an 80s movie, as opposed to giving them a real reason to be evil or a reason for them to be doing what they're doing. So I actually don't know what we're trying to do.
Okay, yeah. I just felt like that was unclear, so I'm
Yeah.
glad you guys are on the same page about that. Otherwise, I'm like, how did I miss what was supposed to be? I mean, the only thing I really could understand was like they're trying to open the portal, obviously, but why? You know, and I don't feel like they ever really answered that. But maybe I could do some research and figure out some theories. But what did you guys think of the storyline of like the Mind Flayer, you know, possessing all these people, and then like that whole concept, like the people turning into their bodies turning into the Mind Flayer?
Yeah, it was definitely different. Like that's one thing that they did a good job, I think, for each season, like really the first season, it was almost like signs. Like you didn't really see the Demogorgon until like the very end.
Yeah.
And then the second season they had the Demodogs, and then this season it was the Mind Flayer. Like I feel like they've done a good job at like every creature is a little bit different.
They even had a Mind Flayer last season, but it was different.
Yeah, it was like
they
that
sh-
big thing in the
shadow.
sky. Yeah.
It was almost like they kind of overlapped. So there's like the Demogorgon in season 1, which makes its way to season 3 at the end. And then the Demodogs is season 2 combined with the Mind Flayer. And then season 3 is like the Mind Flayer, like the Body Snatchers, and then back to the Demogorgon. kind of
Which,
thing.
and I don't know if you
Oh
guys.
yeah, we'll talk about that. Let's
yeah.
talk about that at the end.
Yeah, because
Since
that
it's
was
the ending.
something. But
Yeah.
I guess one thing that maybe I just like overlooked, but the like the rats going crazy, I guess it would do what it did to Billy and the other people to the rats, and then the rats would kind of like
Yeah.
I don't think I never saw it like
That
latch
that didn't
on.
pay off, did it? The rat thing? I feel like it kind of faded out.
yeah,
after.
I mean, because there's that scene in the basement where it's like freaking out, and all of a sudden it just like melts. It's like the people, they melted when they were either killed or like when they were, I don't know,
Emerging.
yeah, it was just I feel like
So-
it was a not well like described. It
I
was
think it could have been it could have been explained a lot better, I think, but I guess the way I interpreted it is that somehow there was just a tiny little bit, maybe like the slug in the sewer kind of a thing, just a really small amount of it, because they allude to it at the very end of the season, and it just kind of crawled into one rat, which they never actually showed, I don't think. They just showed a rat that was crazy.
yeah.
Kind of drove the rat crazy a little bit, and then the rat exploded and became like another exploding rat because it crawled into another rat, and then it merged all of the rat goo, kind of like it did with the people. And then it was enough to, once it controlled rats, the rats drug what's his face down there, the
Yeah,
first human,
Billy.
and that was like their first human host or whatever. And
It was like
then-
a step up to humans.
yeah,
kind
so
of
I think
test.
rats was like an easy, and like what do you find in a sewer kind of a
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So it was like a progression of rats and then people and then more people and then everything else. But they didn't do a good job of really explaining why or how. And I get that they didn't really have to, but they
Well,
could've.
that and like the soil, like, and they came down and like the lady was like eating all the fertilizer. And it was
Okay,
like,
yeah.
why- like,
So that was
why
another
is
weird thing I didn't
she-
understand. And in even another podcast I listened to, they were asking the same question. Like,
I think
what
it's-
was the point of the chemicals and the fertilizer and all
I
that
think
stuff?
it's like even going back to like the Russians are always the bad guys. Like if there's something that a monster gets taken over and it's like any sort of scientific radioactive or anything like that, they're eating fertilizer, something that you
weird.
would use to make like a bomb or
They just have like a weird fuel source. or
yeah,
something.
exactly.
The other
fossil
podcast
fuel.
was saying like basically they were using it to essentially break down their body on the inside. Like basically all that stuff is corrosive, all the stuff they were
Okay.
eating. So it's like they're corroding the inside of their body so that
It's easier to break
it's
down.
easier to, I don't know. I mean, I think when you really, it's
doesn't
a fantasy
matter.
show,
It doesn't, like-
obviously, so you don't have to get scientific about
Yeah.
it. But I think what we're talking about is like plot points that weren't really explained very well.
Like if fertilizer is what's like really helping this thing, then why didn't Nancy and Jonathan just get a bunch of weed killer and like throw it on the Mind Flayer and then like it would have died?
Yeah.
Like
And maybe
show's
there's,
over.
I guess
Weed
our,
killer.
our point is maybe
Wasp
there's an
spray?
explanation out there. Maybe some Redditor or something, or some, BuzzFeed is going to like connect all these dots.
Great, BuzzFeed.
But the fact that we watched it and we still collectively 3 people can't, like, we still have questions. I think that's kind of a fault.
You're supposed to be
fault
able,
of the
you shouldn't
show.
have to research to understand something.
yeah. Unless we're just all idiots.
You know, for me though,
Maybe.
like a lot of, and this happens in a lot of movies, probably because it's really hard to create a lot of mystery and then give like a perfect answer and resolution.
Right.
But I almost like, most of the time, I like the mystery part more than I like the payoff.
That's what was so amazing about season 1, is because think of like the first opening sequence when I forget, boy number 1 goes missing,
Will.
Like when Will goes missing, remember that scene where he's in the shed and he has the gun and the lights flicker and then it cuts to a wide shot of he's just gone.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are we even like? Is it a monster? Is it aliens? We thought it was, they kind of played it off like, oh, it's just aliens.
Yeah.
He got abducted or
Yeah.
something. And so the whole first half of the season, it's a mystery of what's even going on. Like, where is he? It became a mystery, and mysteries are always way more intriguing for the audience than just action thriller.
Yeah, I
So-
do think this one was a lot of action, but I did feel a lot of mystery, and that's like for me, that's what kept me going in this season. Was like there was a lot of questions that they posed throughout, and it kind of for me it carried it along.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't care as much that they didn't perfectly pay off every question, because I enjoyed the ride along the way.
Yeah.
But, we could be critical at the end, like, hey, they didn't really answer all these questions, but I still had fun.
Oh, dude, yeah, it was
experiencing
it was great.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think about the Terminator character? Because, I mean, basically that's who he was.
I think it was so stupid, honestly. Like, he wasn't any taller or any, I don't know. It was, when you looked at him when he was, like, walking through the crowd at, like, the fair.
I always
there
thought
were-
that was so weird. He's got like his gun out and everything.
Yeah, and one thing I was just kept getting pissed off was him and Hopper would just get into it, and then he would get away or Hopper would get away. Like
Right.
every time, it was like probably 3 or 4 different times.
Yeah.
And at the fair scene, I was hoping that maybe this will be like when they're like running through and Hopper kills one of the guys, and then it ends up Alexi dying and he still gets away.
Well, remember at the fair scene, Hopper put like 5 bullets in him, and then
Yeah,
he
bulletproof
gets
vest.
up and he had a bulletproof vest, which I think, again, they were leaning it into the Terminator thing. Like, if it was the real Terminator, the bullets would be like, oh, he would just get back up. And there's no way that they were doing that on accident.
That
Like,
was one thing, like, as much as I enjoyed season 3, I think they went a little too far with, like, the references. They went references over story a little bit too much. So rather than have an independent story that kind of moves on its own and then there's references thrown in, I think they're moving from reference to reference. So everything from the fair to the mall, even their locations were like the mall. What's that? Is it like Night of the Living Dead? One horror movie takes place in a mall. I think maybe Body Snatchers or something. But and then
I know what you're talking about.
Each
The one.
it's just like 80s movie reference to 80s movie reference,
Yeah.
and then let's link, instead of linking beats of a story, let's link reference set pieces to reference characters to reference events.
Did you guys ever play that zombie game where you're in a mall and you
Yeah.
are killing zombies?
It's not Left 4 Dead.
It's not Left 4 Dead. It's the other one.
It's
Dead Rising?
Yeah, Dead Rising.
Dead
It's like 4 of
Rising.
them. And you could like go and pick up like
I
game
remember
was
you have a
creepy, dude.
guitar
Yes.
and you just can hit them.
You go to
go to
the-
the
you
Lego
go to the music
store
shop.
and get a Lego head and just run
Yeah.
around. But yeah, I agree with that. There was a lot of references and things thrown in there that
It was
I
like
was-
just for the sake of let's just put the Terminator in the show without calling him the Terminator. He's basically like
a
the
one man
knockoff
army.
Terminator.
And
It was the Memba Berries from South
It was
Park.
member berries,
true.
yeah. What do you guys think about? Okay, so the fair. When I saw the fair coming, like they were building up to this. You see it in the trailer. You see a couple shots of it, and then they're talking about it. So they're building up to this fair thing. They're on the Ferris wheel, the mom, dad, and the daughter, and she sees the trees moving. Did you guys think there was going to be an incredible film level scene of the monster coming in and just wrecking people at the fair? 'Cause
That would've
I was
been-
so excited
I
for
hope
that,
so.
and then they didn't do it.
That would have been like a game changing, because the show at that point had been kind of like childish and kind of like innocent and like fanfare-y.
Yeah.
yeah.
So imagine kind of like Game of Thrones where Daenerys comes in and just murders everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Imagine
saying, though?
Imagine
Oh, yeah.
how the stakes would change if Mike's parents and his sister both died, and
Yeah.
if everyone in the fair was just massacred, and finally we have like a massacre from like that the government can't deny.
Yeah.
And there's probably going to
Well-
be footage of, and there's of all these people dying. Imagine how that would raise the stakes, not just for the season, but for the whole entire show, and kind of change the game. And then What came out of the forest that was big? Like
Nothing.
No,
nothing.
It turned around and went the other way.
It didn't make
Yeah.
any
It
went to
sense.
the mall.
Like they were
Yeah.
foreshadowing. I mean, they were essentially doing what you do in Jurassic Park, which is like you see the trees moving, and then all of a sudden the dinosaur comes out, and now he's gonna start wrecking people, like in
Yeah.
any Jurassic Park movie. And so like, I feel like it was unfair. They were teasing that, and I'm like, dude.
I was pumped.
A Netflix series is going to do something that's like film level. I mean, the budget on that scene would have been the most expensive scene, from a visual effects standpoint, everything, every level, production, visual effects, post-production, all of it. But they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, why'd you even have the fair
Well, and
if you're not going to do that?
It's so frustrating too, because if you go back and you watch, if you watch every single episode, 80% of the time, the only people that know about what's going on is that small group of people,
Right.
and not even their parents. Their parents are just clueless to like why their kids are gone for like
right.
2 weeks at
Especially Mike's parents. They're
Yes.
like the most clueless.
a time. And when that happened and they're on the Ferris wheel and you see it, I was like, yes, more than just 10 people are finally going to know about this. And then it
Right.
turned and left. And it was definitely disappointing, because I realized at that point, nobody else knows about like what's going on.
Yeah, it
and
made
I
you
feel
think,
like
like,
the
holy
stakes,
crap.
like Adam said, they would be so much higher. And if it wasn't this like super top secret, and I get why everything happens at night, because, the mind flayer doesn't like the sun. But I mean, that fair was a perfect setup to actually like introduce a monster to more than just the main cast. But
I mean, it was literally so disappointing for me that I wanted to go pull up, because I own the movie. I wanted to go watch. Shoot, I can't think of the name now. The huge monster movie, Monsters versus Robots. What's it called?
Pacific Rim.
I wanted to go get my Blu-ray of Pacific Rim and just pop it in and just watch like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because
Actual like monster
I thought they were
destruction.
gonna do that. Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, it just killed me. And then the whole time, I'm like, okay, Battle of Starcourt. Surely they'll do a massive scale, like tons of people getting hurt at the mall.
Yeah.
And still,
At
it was
night.
only the kids at the mall. Which, I mean, that scene was really cool.
It was. The fireworks, all of
Yeah,
that
the
was
fireworks. That was
pretty
pretty
awesome.
interesting. Like, I've never seen someone like. I've never seen someone like battle something with fireworks. But anyway, same thing there.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that one as much, but I was like, maybe since they didn't do it here, they were saving their money. Like, I'm sure they had a budget for the whole show, and they're like, okay, let's. And even so, like that scene, if you look at the visual effects credits on the last episode, it's like, instead of just half of a page, or I think it was like 4 pages
Right.
of tiny text.
Yeah.
It was.
They
it was like a
stepped it
film
up for
yeah.
sure this season. And like it looked great. I mean, there wasn't
Oh yeah,
visually
absolutely.
and the acting. I mean, season was still an incredible like series of events, and I still really enjoyed it, but I'm much less like willing to forgive at this point, because they've had 2 previous seasons to like listen to the audience and
Yeah.
be like, this is what they're wanting. But yeah.
The first season was like their unspoiled, this is what we have come up with no feedback from anybody. It's just we came up with this strange concept and, out of nowhere. And then you're saying like season 3 is like, okay, we know what the public kind of wants, and that's why maybe what you're saying about like kind of hyping up the 80s stuff and the references and all that. They're like, oh, people want more references. We have to do it. We got to
Yeah.
put more references in. I don't know.
I just think I would rather see a really good story that just happens to take place in the 80s, as opposed to like searching like, oh, I remember Star Wars.
Yeah.
Or I remember
The Coke.
Never
like-
Ending Story, or
Yeah. Wasn't there Coke references?
yeah, there was a new Coke and Coke. They
Yeah.
were talking about the because they changed it in the 80s, and then
That's
they
right.
eventually went back, I think. But
What'd you guys think about the Steve and Robin story? Like, the I don't know if it's the payoff or the the twist.
I
at the end
saw
of that story.
I saw a meme that, and I tried to find it, but I couldn't. But it basically it's she's holding up like a whiteboard, and they've taken it and they make it white so you can like put your own text in there, and it basically was talking about like taking something and basically just like adding it to a character for no reason.
Like J.K. Rowling.
Yeah,
does.
like oh yeah, we're just gonna make her gay for no reason.
I think it's kind of a. This is why people were mad at J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, after the books were done and the story was done, and after, it was just completely over. She's like, "Oh yeah, Dumbledore is gay," and it's like, it's one thing if she's just trying to show support for the gay community, but if it's kind of almost like an insult to the gay community. Because like, why couldn't you have made him gay in the books so that there's like it's trying to do something, trying to take a bold stance but without any risk or consequence. So it's easy to make a bold stance because imagine if they would have done that. I don't know. So in this case it's like, let's throw in a side character who we can kind of bring in, and if we make this choice about her and people don't like it, then we can just eliminate her next season. It's kind of a throwaway character.
Well, and there was no lead in at all.
Yeah.
Like the whole time you're thinking that like she likes Steve.
Yeah.
And then they're in the bathroom and she's like, "No, you don't get it." And I was like, "What?" Like you're just gonna make her like gay all of a sudden?
I don't
was
think
kind of convoluted there.
being gay shouldn't be a
was-
punchline.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was a joke, but I'm saying like the
Yeah.
punchline to a story, like it shouldn't be
Yeah.
a reveal.
It
You know what I mean?
It
Like,
shouldn't. It
should
was
be-
kind of a.
If she was gay the entire time, that would have been a different thing. I want to say.
But you also have to think of the era and the time they were in. Like,
Sure.
That it
was
wasn't
more right. I get that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that.
I just think
But
it
she
was.
could have told him much earlier.
or hinted more.
Or I think there's kind of two ways. There's ways to look at it in like the reality, like if they were real people, and then there's another way to look at it from like the writers of the show. Like what were they trying to do by that? Mm-hmm. And I think if they're trying to show support for the gay community, I think they kind of almost failed in a little bit because they made it completely inconsequential to the plot, or inconsequential to. The only consequence it has was that she and Steve can't like be a thing.
Yeah.
So,
Which
it
was like
completely-
disappointing because they kept building that up and up and up and up. And so you're like, oh, they're like, this is awesome. Steve is finally going to have a girl. And then, nope.
Yeah, it's like
She-
another show I watch, Schitt's Creek, which is a hilarious show. You guys should check it out if you haven't seen it. But like one of the main characters is gay, and they don't necessarily like say that from the episode one, but it's like it's pretty obvious. Like he's pretty open about it, and it's just part of the story. Like it's part of his character. It's not a secret or a punchline.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like was strange about this, and then the fact that they were building that relationship for you to go like, Steve is kind of this shallow guy, and that's kind of part of his character, and so for him to like, finally go for her, like the girl that's been there the entire time, and then for them to sort of like twist that was just a little strange.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I don't know. I thought that was weird.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like the scene itself. I thought was incredible. Like
Oh, yeah.
that scene,
that bathroom scene was
like they're acting in it. Like she's an incredible actor.
yeah, they both. And like his story arc, like he was probably one of my favorite people like this whole season. It's like he starts off like almost like reliving like the glory days of high school. I mean, he's like anybody else probably that was a jock that in the 80s in those stereotypical movies where you're living in the past and you're in college now and you're working at Scoops Ahoy,
Right.
trying and it's his hair still looked good though.
Yeah. No, he was cool because like you're saying, like he was kind of like he was overcoming his own stereotype and like becoming essentially growing as a person and becoming a more accepting person, which I think that fit into it in the fact that like he accepted her and I actually what I thought was cool about that reveal was that it was like not every relationship between a guy and a girl has to be a romantic relationship, and
Yeah.
like they had this friendship,
Yeah.
which was really cool.
Well, and that's like totally cool that, she ends up like being gay. Like that's for that character, but I just wish they would have done it in a way that wasn't like, I feel like it was just super pandering. Like they wanted like this huge shock
Score some
factor,
points or
and
whatever.
you didn't have to do that. You could have just told us that,
Yeah.
but you also,
Or even, like you said, even hinted at it, had her, check out a girl or whatever. Like show
was-
it a little bit earlier.
I was
than
reading
the ending.
Yeah, on that thread that I saw that post, that there was somebody that was kind of trying to be like, well, there was in this one part when he's talking about that it was another girl or in the class that he would look at and she would look at him, and somebody was like, yeah, you can kind of see like her eyes light up when she talks about the girl, and I feel like at that point
wasn't obvious enough.
you're just looking for things. It was not.
It did feel like they were just looking for a reason for them not to be together, and it felt really rushed and
Yeah.
really inconsequential. Like they are like, oh, Steve can't be with her, even though we've been building to that all season. So like, why can't we? Instead of writing a finessed reason, they're just, oh, she's gay. It just
Yeah.
felt like a throwaway.
So I guess now it's going to be another, like in the next season. I don't know how many seasons they're planning, but in the next season, I know there's a 4 because obviously because of the cliffhanger, which we probably should talk about in a second. But like he's going to have another probably romantic pursuit in season 4, and it'll be like, they're probably holding that out because they already paired up Nancy and what's his name?
Jonathan.
Yeah, Nancy and Jonathan, like they're already paired up, so you got to find someone for Steve, and it seems like they want everyone to pair up. Is kind of the idea.
They kind of threw Jonathan to the back this season.
Yeah, he
because
did not have
half of his lines were just getting busted in on in the dark room. He's like, "Hey,"
Yeah.
like when he's trying to develop
or following
a photo.
Nancy
Well,
around.
Yeah,
I think that's
and he's like, Nancy.
yeah, but I do think though,
don't do
like
this.
when you have the more characters you introduce, and you kind of you almost have to introduce more characters, but the more characters introduced, the less time you get for each character. But I do think they did a good job of like everybody had a job in this season. Like everyone that you knew from the previous seasons, as well as the new characters, all had some pretty important things to do, and they like.
Except Mr. Wheeler. His only job was to
He was just a punchline all season.
Wait, which one's Mr. Wheeler?
the dad who his wife was gonna
Oh,
go
Mike's
and,
dad.
cheat on.
Yeah, but I mean, you didn't necessarily ever care about him
They
in
kept
the show.
They kept dropping Mr. Wheeler lines when they didn't have to, and for me that was like, is he gonna come back and play a part?
Yeah.
Because not only like the cheating thing in the first couple episodes, there's the second, quarter of the season where they were like spying on people, and Eleven's like, should we spy on Mr. Wheeler? And then they're like, no, he's boring. So
Yeah.
they kept bringing him back and like referencing him in weird
And
ways. So I thought he was gonna show up and like have some point to the plot, and he just didn't.
the Ferris wheel scene, you're
Right.
wondering
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe this like, hey, you've got Mr. and Mrs. Wheeler and their daughter, like maybe
Yeah.
they're doing more stuff together,
Yeah.
and he's just like scared and terrified the whole time and
So,
has
like,
no.
Maybe for next season though, because they did the same thing with Mrs. Wheeler. She was such a minor character last year, and she still kind of was this year. But this was Mr. Wheeler's most screen time, I think, this season. But he still was like
Did
a
nothing.
throwaway
Yeah.
character.
I didn't necessarily care about that. I wasn't personally expecting him to like become important at all, just because he's sort of to me he's like a comedy character.
Yeah.
Like he's just kind of a goofy. Like I think I remember one of the episodes of season 1 where he's just like, it's showing him in his house, and he's just kind of a goofy, like the 80s stereotype dad. Him.
Yeah.
And so, do you guys want to talk about I don't know, did we miss any major plot points, or do you guys want to go on to the cliffhanger thing, or?
Probably need to go to the
Yeah.
ending.
So, the American. Who is the American?
I mean, I think it's either two people. I think it's Hopper is the main theory, but it could be the other guy.
Which guy?
The
The guy who spoke Russian.
The
Help
conspiracy theorist guy?
Yeah.
Even though we
Alexei.
saw him,
Is it Murray?
we saw him.
Is that his name?
It's 3 months later, so he could have been kidnapped, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
We saw him after Hopper's death.
Sure.
He was running out of the building with Joyce, and then something good, or it could just be. This is the problem I have with those kinds of cliffhangers, where the whole cliffhanger is like added information and added ambiguous information, meaning, let's say we don't know it's Hopper, and they obviously are trying to dangle that in front of us, but it could also easily be they could change their minds. It's a cliffhanger that gives themselves wiggle room.
Yeah.
So they can say like, oh, it's just some new character next season too.
I want it
or
to
it could be that I heard that could be the bad guy from the first season coming back.
The dad.
Papa.
Yeah. So that's kind of what it is. It's like it's a cliffhanger, but something that allows the writers to kind of have it both ways. They could gauge the audience reaction over the summer or over the off season and see like what do they want to see? What would they be most happy seeing?
I want it to be Hopper.
I forgot what you call this section, but the section after that, every movie has like after the climax of the movie, and then there's like, here's where we are now,
The epilogue.
The epilogue. So in the epilogue, like they split all the kids up, and like Nancy and Jonathan are split up. 11 and Mike, like they split everyone up.
Yeah.
Why did they have to do that?
I mean, to me, that was them letting you know that there's going to be another season, because they're not Game of Thrones. They're not just going to end it and just kill off a bunch of people or, have all these storylines split and unfinished. At least I don't think that they would. So to me, they did that to basically give you something to question and talk about and wonder, and then be like, all right, well, they have to fix it next season. Everybody has to come back together next season. So I think it's
okay. So they had a Demogorgon.
Well, see that, and that was.
So what was that implying, that the Russians had succeeded somehow in opening? It was in Russia, right? That was where that was.
The only way that, at least from my knowledge after watching all 3 seasons, the only way that any of those creatures can be alive is if a portal is open.
Oh, that's right. Because when they closed it, the big guy.
Right. And like in the second season, when she closed it, all the Demodogs died. So to me, it means that they must have opened a portal, which then, this goes to my, like, I kind of hope it's Hopper theory, is when Hopper's out there and he's like looking at Joyce, and you see like the electric field that he like can't jump through.
Right.
But then he like, it cuts, and there's this weird, like, he's looking at the portal and it's still open. Like, to me, that was him, or maybe a nod to he jumped and went through the portal, because they had no problem showing, like, when the first time they did it, it exploded, it like evaporated all the people and it killed the other guards. You don't see any, and I know that, even if it did kill him, evaporate, there wouldn't be anything left. But it was a very, like,
they didn't show him on purpose.
It was not a finished.
They went out of their way to make you notice both Hopper, notice the portal, cut back to Hopper. The explosion happens, and then the camera's focused on the portal closing.
Yeah.
So they were super, I don't know, almost too much, like a misdirection. Like, they want us to think he jumped into the portal, almost, but
I don't know how the thing about him is, like, that energy beam, I don't know how he would, like, walk right next to that without just getting vaporized, but, whatever. And I think what you're saying is interesting. Like, what you're basically saying is, Adam, you're saying, like, well, they may not have even decided who this is.
Yeah.
Like, we could be talking about this and they haven't even decided in the writing room. They're like, let's leave it open. It's un-American, which can basically be any character.
Yeah.
Then, well, it can't be like
it's
anyone else that was shown in 3 months later. But
it's kind of like the writing way of, like, having your cake and eating it too, is where you can have, let's kill off a character and get this huge emotional conclusion. Because imagine if Hopper didn't die,
right,
that season would have no emotional weight to it, the ending. It would just be, okay, we did it again, just like we did it 2 other times.
They did kill off Billy, though, which I thought was pretty emotional. Seeing as he's
I did feel bad for him at the end.
Yeah, but think about it. He's also a character that they added later.
Yeah,
just
he wasn't...
like the girl from the Scoops place.
Yeah.
It's almost like you can do whatever you want with characters that you throw in. I know he was there last season, but last season he didn't play a big part.
No.
And not as big as this season. So
Yeah.
It was Hopper.
if it was like one of the kids, imagine if it was like Dustin that got taken over and then they had to kill Dustin.
Yeah.
That would have more of an emotional weight than this guy who's always been kind of a villain.
Yeah.
So there's that. And so imagine if Hopper didn't die, they would have no emotional weight. But let's say the writers are like, oh, but we like him. We don't want to kill him. So then you kind of throw this thing at the wall and then write yourself kind of a way out if you want to take it. So it's kind of like doing something bold, but also like having room to backtrack if
Sure.
it goes the wrong way. Just like making the other character gay, like you can backtrack because she's a minor character, and you can, if it goes right, you can just keep her in there. If it goes wrong, she's a minor character, so you don't
Yeah.
have to come back to her in the next season. So it's kind of almost a
Did you guys notice the family
lazy
video?
way to write.
I didn't know that Family Video was like this huge national chain, and it was
Yeah,
alive
I-
in the 80s. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, it was funny.
I would have been surprised. I mean, I guess Blockbuster is more like 90s-ish, but anyway, I just thought that was funny. What'd you guys, so quickly, ranking seasons 1 through 3, where would you put them?
After, even though I talked a lot of crap on season 3, season 3 was my favorite. And then season 1 and then season 2.
Okay. Adam?
I'd probably go 1, 3, 2.
Yeah, I'm probably 1, 3, 2 as well. And I'm pretty I was on the fence a little bit, but, and I'd really have to go back and watch 1, but I do remember 1 just being like, it's hard to ever beat the first of anything because it's like it paved the way and created the universe, and to me that's like
Right.
It was after watching season 3, go back and watch season 1. Not that it'll change your mind, but I think it'll like, it's like totally different. If you,
Yeah.
from the way the characters talk to each other, from the cinematography to like the art style, it's like, I don't know. It was just, even the storytelling of just like the mystery, like season 1, the genre wasn't sci-fi or fantasy. It was like totally mystery.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to solve a mystery. You're trying, like Hopper is the detective, Joyce is the detective, and they're getting little clues and little things, and there's misdirection and red herrings and stuff. Their other 2 seasons are just like homage to Spielberg movies.
Yeah. At least, there's nothing memorable in season 2. At least for me.
The only thing I remember is the thing that people hated, which was that like when she goes to Indianapolis, or she goes to Chicago,
in 2. Yeah.
or whatever city that was.
Yeah.
Oh, and like the weird band of like misfits.
They were
and-
doing a total like Warriors
Yeah.
spoof, or
X-Men.
yeah, I think it's Warriors.
I thought I got like
Misfits.
an X-Men vibe from
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Well,
That was the only thing I remember from season 2, and it was
Yeah.
because most people were like,
but that being said, I haven't been disappointed by any of the seasons so
No.
far. And
Yeah.
you know,
It's
to
been
do a
a great
sequel
show.
after 1, like I've been super impressed with the show to be able to hold up like brand new seasons and come up with, like you said, a new monster, a new mystery, because I still had a lot of questions throughout the whole season, which like I said, kept me interested and engaged, and I'm like, oh, I gotta watch the next one, you know.
Right.
So I thought they succeeded, but it's hard to beat one. You know, it's hard to ever beat the first one of anything.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
first season was really. I think for this season there was the mixture of different story. Like there was so much going on that I just really enjoyed because it was never boring for me. It was always something that was going on, and it was new, and the different character developments and the like groups that were happening.
Yeah.
But
so where do we pick up season 4? 11 doesn't have powers anymore.
Yep.
It's probably a safe assumption to say that she'll just get him back somehow.
Yeah.
yeah, because it's
Probably at the end,
because
it'd
that's
be-
the only way that
Yeah.
they can.
It makes
Hopper
sense to be like
is
the last episode she
They
gets him
all
back.
think he's dead, whether he really is or not. They all believe he's dead. They all have moved. They're in a different city. They alluded to like they'll be back for Christmas, so maybe season 4 will be like a Christmas themed episode, like this season was like a 4th of July themed episode.
Right. That'll actually be kind of
so-
cool. Like when movies mix like Christmas and horror. It's
Yeah.
kind of fun. Like
Yeah.
Gremlins doesn't. I think Gremlins does that.
So yeah, at least season 4 will have, I think, a concern I have, which I still love each season on its own, despite all of the like detours they take and stuff. But I hope it doesn't become formulaic, like everything's happy now. They think they've defeated the thing. and then oh no, the bad guys are back and the monsters are back, and then
Yeah.
they defeat him. Like, I guess that they have to have a happy ending, but
Yeah.
to do that, it kind of becomes like Handmaid's Tale, where it's like, okay, now we're back to square one. Like now we're like Hopper is saying things, or the characters are, like Steve and Nancy are talking, and Nancy's like, they're back, like the monsters or whatever. Something's weird, and Jonathan's like, no, you're crazy. You're like,
Yeah.
why don't they believe each other at this point? They've
I don't
gone
know.
through like the supernatural
That I did
stuff
think that
twice.
was funny because it's like, guys, we've been down this road. You really need to trust each
Like
other.
they should trust each other.
The fact that Hopper didn't believe what's her name whenever she
Yeah.
was trying to explain stuff to him, and you're like,
it's
dude,
like it kind of makes
crazy stuff has already happened. Why is this? Why do you think anything else is?
it kind of makes it like season 1 and season 2 never happened.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
your character development,
Exactly.
it kind of throws that out the window. But
Yeah.
that's another thing. But
Well, I think we've done a good job of kind of like hitting all the major points. We probably missed a few things, but there's a lot that went on in season 3. So, but I think we hit the biggies.
if you guys have big points that you want to talk about, leave them in the comments or
We would love to.
Whatever.
to
Yeah,
chat
if
it
you
up
if
with
you leave a comment, we will answer it and try to give our best answer. What we
leave a
think.
comment. We'll read
Not that we know
we'll read
anything.
the funniest comments in the next episode.
Oh,
How
I
about
like that.
Or
I
the
like that
best
idea.
detailed. We'll have a segment. We should have a user engagement section at the
Yeah.
beginning of each. Like, here's what you said about last week, and then we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I like that.
And I think
Unless you say something dumb, then we're not gonna-
And subscribe on if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe or wherever you're listening, because we've got a lot more episodes coming, and they're going to be about lots of neat things.
Neato things.
So yeah,
I think we have 18 subscribers right now.
Hey.
Let's shoot for 25.
we're
What's
going
weird is
25.
because we have 18 subscribers, but we're averaging a lot more views. So there's a lot of people watching that just aren't subscribed.
So come on, guys.
So subscribe because it helps the channel.
Yeah.
Because we feel good about ourselves. Fake internet points make me feel good about
Fake
myself.
internet points can eventually transition into real life money and stuff. So
So
if
we
the
can get
money's
more
there,
microphones.
we can build a better studio or
Yeah.
get more microphones or have better guests.
I
on
think
them.
we
guys.
are working on some apparel.
Oh yeah, we're gonna
Oh,
have
that's right.
merchandise,
Maybe by the next episode we'll have
fanny
Have
packs,
something to announce.
and
yeah shirts and things.
Yeah. So a
Hats.
new logo coming.
Yes,
Exciting.
it's pretty neat.
Well,
It's-
guys,
yeah.
I think it's safe to say that Stranger Things is a pretty neato show.
I agree.
Yes.
Goodbye!